If you've spent any time at all in a gym, you've heard it a million times. Go hard or go home, right? It's this idea that to really get results, you have to push every single set to its absolute grinding limit until you literally can't move the weight one more time. And you know what? It kind of makes sense. But what if that all-out effort, that chase for failure on every set, isn't just unnecessary? What if it's actually holding you back? Let's get into it and see what the science really says. So this is the big question, isn't it? For years, this has been the debate in gyms and science labs all over the world. Is training to total muscular failure the secret key that unlocks your maximum gains? Or is there a smarter, maybe even better way to build muscle? Well, a whole wave of new research is pointing to an answer that might actually surprise you. All right, here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start by busting the whole go-to-failure myth. Then I'm going to introduce you to a game-changing tool called RIR. It's going to completely change how you think about effort. From there, we'll look at the science, failure versus gains, what's the verdict? We'll uncover the hidden costs of redlining it all the time, and we'll wrap it all up with a smart blueprint you can use to start training more effectively, like today. So where did this whole idea of training to failure even come from? Well, it's not just bro science, it's actually rooted in some pretty solid physiology. The logic goes like this. To make a muscle grow, you have to challenge it in a way it's never been challenged before. And really, what's more challenging than pushing until you literally can't push anymore? This whole thing comes down to a scientific concept called Henneman's size principle. Basically, your body is smart. It recruits muscle fibers in order, from the smallest ones built for endurance, all the way up to the largest, most powerful ones, the type 2 fibers. Now, these big guys, they have the most potential for growth, but they only show up to the party when the weight gets heavy or when you start getting really fatigued. So the theory is, pushing to failure guarantees you've woken up every last one of those growth-prone fibers. And that is the question. The theory makes perfect sense on paper, but what happens when we actually apply it, in the real world, week after week, month after month? Does the benefit of squeezing out that last final rep really outweigh the costs? This is where that old school wisdom starts to show some cracks, and a much smarter, more scientific approach begins to take shape. So instead of just thinking in these black and white terms of failure or not failure, modern exercise science gives us a much more precise tool. I want you to meet your new best friend for managing intensity. It's called RIR, or reps in reserve. And it is beautifully simple. RIR is just a way of rating how close you are to that point of failure. So if you finish a set of 10 reps and you feel like you definitely could have done 2 more with good form, that's an RER of 2. If you finish a set and you absolutely know that was the last possible rep you could do, that's an RER of 0. It's a way to measure your effort on any given day, and it accounts for everything. How you slept, what you ate, all of it. Just think of it like a countdown to failure. At an RIR of 3 to 4, you're in control. The weight feels manageable. Then you hit RIR 2. Okay, this is getting challenging now. RIR 1 is a real grind. You know you've only got 1 more good rep in you. And RIR 0? That's it. Lights out. The tank is completely empty. You've hit total muscular failure. Now, if you've ever heard of the RPE scale, the rate of perceived exertion, RIR is basically just the other side of that same coin. An RPE of 10, which is max possible effort, is the exact same thing as an RIR of 0. An RPE of 9, where you feel like you had 1 rep left, that's an RIR of 1. They're just 2 different ways of describing that same feeling of effort. Okay, so we've got this awesome tool, RIR, but what happens when we actually put the old go-to-failure theory to the test? Do you really build more muscle by constantly hitting an RIR of 0? Let's take a look at what the latest science has to say. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. When scientists put people on workout programs for 8 to 10 weeks, they found something fascinating. The group that trained to absolute failure, hitting that RIR of 0 on their sets, they saw great muscle growth. No surprise there. But the group that stopped just a little short of failure, leaving 1 or 2 reps in the tank, an RIR of 1 to 2, they saw virtually the exact same amount of muscle growth. Let that sink in for a second. The same gains without the all-out grind on every single set. So the bottom line here, backed by a ton of research, is that the sweet spot for hypertrophy, that's just the fancy word for muscle growth, seems to be right in that RIR 1 to 2 range. For the kind of moderate to heavy lifting most of us do, pushing all the way to RIR 0 just doesn't seem to add any significant benefit. Now, it's true, for really light load training, failure might give you a tiny edge, but for most people, the difference is so small it's probably meaningless for your long-term progress. You might be thinking, okay, if the gains are the same, why not just train to failure anyway? It feels hardcore, right? Well, here's the thing. Training isn't just about the work you do in one set. It's about what you can recover from and repeat over and over again. And this is where training to failure starts to show its dark side. Here's the best way to think about it. Your body's ability to recover is like a bank account. Every workout is a withdrawal. A tough workout, staying around RAR 1 to 2, that's a significant withdrawal for sure. But a workout where you go to absolute failure on every set, that's like taking out a massive cash advance with a sky-high interest rate. It drains your account and takes way, way longer to pay back. And here are the receipts for that huge withdrawal. Training to failure creates a crazy amount of fatigue. That means you need more time to recover between workouts. It also means your performance on your second, third, and fourth sets of an exercise just tanks. You end up lifting less weight or getting fewer reps, which actually reduces your total training volume. And that's a key driver of muscle girth. And of course, when you're that exhausted, your form starts to break down, which just skyrockets your risk of injury. It's a classic case of winning the battle but losing the war. So, knowing all of this, how do we actually put it into practice? How can we use RIR to build a smarter, more effective, and frankly, safer training plan? Let's build your blueprint. First things first, not all exercises are created equal. For those big, heavy, compound movements, think squats, deadlifts, bench presses, pushing to absolute failure is a high-risk, low-reward game. A failed rep on a heavy squat is not fun. So for these, you want to stay in that RAR 1 to 3 range. But for isolation exercises, like a bicep curl or a leg extension, the risk is way lower. It's much safer to push these to an RAR of 0 or 1, especially on your last set, to really maximize that muscle stimulus. Okay, now for a quick reality check. RIR is a skill, and it takes practice. The research is super clear on this. Most of us, especially when we're starting out, are not very good at judging it. We think we're at an RIR of 1, when in reality, we've got 2, 3, maybe even 4 more good reps in the tank. So it takes time, and you have to be honest with yourself to really learn what your limits feel like. You should also think about adjusting your target RIR based on your experience. If you're a beginner, your number one priority is mastering perfect form. So just hang out around an RIR of 3 or 4. You will still make amazing progress. For intermediate lifters, that RIR 1 to 2 range is really the sweet spot. And for you advanced lifters, you can be more strategic, pushing closer to failure, maybe RIR 0 to 2 to bust through plateaus. So what does this look like in a real workout? Well, you might start with heavy barbell squats, leaving a safe 2 to 3 reps in the tank. Then, on your bench press, you might push a little closer to an RIR of 1 to 2. When you move to a stable machine chest press, you could safely get even closer, maybe RIR 0 to 2. And finally, on your bicep curls, you can go all out on that last set and hit a true RIR of 0. See? It's all about managing risk and fatigue intelligently throughout the workout. All right, let's tie this all together. The most important thing to remember is this. Training close to failure in that RIR 1 to 2 zone builds muscle just as well as going all the way, but with way less fatigue and risk. You want to be smart about it. Leave more in the tank on big, complex lifts and save that all-out intensity for safer movements, like isolation exercises. And remember, be honest with yourself about where you are in your fitness journey and always prioritize great form. So in the end, it's time we reframe the question we ask ourselves in the gym. For decades, it's all been about training harder, about having more grit, about pushing through pain. But the science is pretty clear. The real question, the one that leads to long-term sustainable progress, isn't, are you training hard enough? It's, are you training smart enough? Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful and you want to keep building your body with your brain, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're always digging into the science to help you get the best results possible. Thanks so much for watching. Now go train smart.